Hey, what is going on, people and aliens, if you're watching this? Today I want to get back to the basics and I want to define what is financial independence. That you 100% know exactly what financial independence is, what it means to be financially independent, and how you can get financially independent. Now, there are many different ways that you can become financially independent, but there are two main methods. And those two ways are either replacing your spending with passive income or acquiring enough wealth to where you can withdraw from your assets a certain small percentage, basically for the remainder of your lifetime, and never run out of money. Now, both of those main paths do have their merits. Both of them have their advantages and their main disadvantages, but the one that I mainly talk about and the one that I really enjoy working on towards myself is acquiring enough wealth in order to never have to rely on work income again. Both have the same goal in mind, and that goal is to get you to where you don't have to rely on work income in order to live your life. If you had enough passive income coming in that you didn't have to work for a living, then you're considered financially independent. At the same time, if you have enough investments to where you can withdraw a certain small percentage of it per year, and those investments will last you for the rest of your life, then you too do not have to rely on work income in order to make a living. So while that is the main goal, in order to make it where you don't have to rely on work income in order to make a living, it doesn't mean that you are not supposed to work, or it doesn't mean that you cannot work even if you are financially independent. Many people who are financially independent continue to work because it's something that they enjoy doing, it's something that they're passionate about, or it's something that just keeps them busy. Either way, think of financial independence not as just escaping from having to work, but more as having the ultimate financial security. Or at least having a lot more financial security than living paycheck to paycheck or just relying on work income in order to live. Because it doesn't really matter how secure you think your job is. Any one of us can lose a job at any time. Anything can really happen. The best thing that you can do is be prepared for yourself by creating these passive income streams and or by accumulating enough assets to where you are responsible for your own financial security. So what I'm going to be talking about is more on the acquiring enough assets. A big question that you got to ask yourself is, how much money am I going to need? What worth of investments am I going to need in order to be considered financially independent? And that answer is going to vary among all of us because we all have different lifestyles, we all have different spending requirements, we all have different family sizes, we have many different factors in our lives. But luckily, there is one rule of thumb in financial independence when it comes to withdrawing from your assets, and that is known as the 4% rule. The 4% rule basically states that if you acquire enough in assets and you can withdraw 4% or less of your assets per year, then you have a very highly likely chance of you never running out of money for your entire life. And originally what this rule of thumb is based on is what's called the Trinity study. And the Trinity study is a study done by 3 professors of finance at Trinity University, which is based out of Texas. And this study was actually completed in the late 90s. And what it did was it looked back at a bunch of historical data on various different retirements. I believe from the 1920s up until 1995. And what it did is they ran scenarios how long a portfolio would last in various amounts of retirement years. And the max retirement year that they looked at was a 30-year period. Many of the scenarios that they ran using that had very, very high probabilities of success, of lasting for that entire 30 years. And actually, the study was revisited again, and it was updated in order to account for some of the things that we've experienced in the 2000s, such as the Great Recession. When it was revisited, it actually extended one of the retirements out to 40 years. And we can again see in that time that the success rates, even over 40 years, were actually pretty high. And I'm not going to get too much on the 4% rule in this video. I do want to do a very in-depth video on the 4% rule in another video. But for now, just know that a lot of financial independence and acquiring a certain amount of wealth, it's all based on the 4% rule. If you can withdraw 4% or less of your assets per year and live off of that amount, then there's a very, very high chance that that money is going to last you a lifetime. One of the most common goals in financial independence is acquiring $1 million. And that's because utilizing the 4% rule with $1 million, you can spend $40,000 per year. $40,000 might sound pretty good to you, or $40,000 might sound pretty lousy to you. It really depends on where you live and your lifestyle. But the great thing is that the 4% rule does not have to just apply to $1 million. The 4% rule can be scaled up or down for many different spending levels. Take, for example, 1.5 million. If you were able to acquire $1.5 million in assets and you applied the 4% withdrawal rule to that, then you could spend $60,000 per year. What if you acquired $2 million? Then utilizing this 4% safe withdrawal rate, you can spend up to $80,000 per year. It really depends on what your spending level is. That's going to determine how much worth of assets that you should acquire in your goal of financial independence. Another way that you can figure this out is to just take your annual expenses and multiply it by 25. So one way to look at that is for every $1,000 that you spend per year, you're going to need $25,000 in assets. Hence, if we go back to the $1 million, we can take that annual spending of $40,000, multiply $40,000 by 25, and we would get $1 million. So it can work both ways. You can multiply the overall goal amount by 4%, or you can multiply the annual spending amount by 25. Both of these work in order to find your financial independence number. Another really important concept that you need to know about with financial independence is your savings rate. Now, your savings rate doesn't refer to how much money you actually save. It really refers to how much you invest, because financial independence is really heavily based on proper investing, not just saving money, because a lot of your net worth is going to be built up through the power of compound interest, and that comes from your investments making money over time. So paying attention to your savings rate, which is also known as your investment rate, they just get used interchangeably, is really important, because assuming a certain amount of return on investments and a certain amount of inflation is going to allow you to estimate approximately how long it's going to take you to reach financial independence, especially starting from a $0 net worth. For example, if you take a 8% investment return and a 3% inflation rate, it gives you a 5% real return. And if you're starting from a $0 net worth, no matter what your income is, if you save 65% of your income, as in you invest 65% of your income for financial independence, it should take you about 10.5 years in order to reach that goal. If the inflation rate was 3% average and your return on investments was 8% average. Now, I'm going to throw up a nice little chart for you so you can take a look at it, and it has the various savings rates and the various amount of years it's going to take you in order to reach financial independence. And basically what it illustrates is that the percentage of your income that goes towards investing for financial independence is going to approximately determine how long it's going to take you to achieve financial independence, especially starting from zero. My favorite savings rate is 65%, because assuming those numbers, it'll take you about 10.5 years to reach financial independence. And so if you have a little bit already saved up, then that's about 10 years to financial independence, which I generally believe is a pretty good goal for most people. But of course, we all have our different journeys to financial independence. The point of this video is to make sure that you know what financial independence is and how you can get started on the right track to achieving financial independence. There is so much more to financial independence, but it's important to know that the concept of it is very simple. You invest a large portion of your income, eventually you acquire enough assets to where you can withdraw 4% or less of it, and you're financially independent. Very simple in concept, kind of hard in practice. So if you're ready to get started on your financial independence journey, or you need some motivation along the way, please hit that subscribe button to this channel, because I want to talk a lot more about financial independence, and I want it to go straight to your inbox. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and have a great day.